Two cars collided, and another pregnant woman and I were rushed into the delivery room at the same time. This mother's water has already broken. She needs immediate surgery. Find her family to sign the consent form. Just as I was about to be pushed into the operating room, I hurriedly said, "My husband is busy. I can sign it myself." Before my voice had even faded, another pregnant woman's husband rushed in. "Save her first. Her condition is more severe. She has a heart condition." His face was covered in blood from panic, yet I still recognized him. "Charles. You are my husband. You are my husband. I am Charles, an obstetrician at the Central Hospital. Please trust my professional judgment." I reached out to touch him, but he slapped my hand away. "But this woman's water has already broken." Charles glanced at me. "She won't die. I'm her husband. I can sign the liability waiver." Chapter 1. The car accident happened so suddenly that the hospital's doctors were unevenly distributed. This surgery opportunity was rare. It was originally mine. But because my husband was the leading obstetric expert at Central Hospital, everyone believed in his professional judgment and postponed my surgery. As my hospital bed was pushed away, Charles didn't even spare me a glance. His hands clutched tightly around Sabrina's, all his concern laid bare. "It's okay. Once the approval goes through, I'll personally operate on you. You will definitely make it off the operating table safely." The tenderness in his eyes stabbed through me. Without a bed for me, they placed me in the hallway, where I watched him pour his love onto another woman. Patients came and went, surrounded by their families. In moments of fear, they had someone to lean on, but I had no one. He walked past me, pausing for a moment, but he didn't turn his head. He left decisively, only leaving behind one unclear sentence: "You won't die. Please trust my professional judgment." I didn't know how long that surgery took. During the wait, I drifted into sleep. When I was finally awakened, a group of medical staff had gathered around me. "The patient is experiencing an acute amniotic fluid embolism. Quickly, contact the blood bank." "Where is Dr. Charles? Get him now. He's the only one in the city who has handled amniotic fluid embolism cases before. We don't have experience." A flurry of hurried footsteps. My bed was swiftly pushed by several male nurses, who comforted me. They told me everything would be okay. They said my husband was the most authoritative obstetrician in the city, that he had successfully treated amniotic fluid embolisms twice, with a 100% success rate. They said that since I was young, healthy, and not a high-risk blood type, my chances of survival were high. The bright white surgical lights shone directly down as everyone anxiously yet methodically reported my vitals. "No, her oxygen levels are dropping too fast. She's failing." "Where is Dr. Charles?" My attending physician was nervous. His hand gripping mine was ice cold. A nurse anxiously said, "Dr. Charles left after finishing Sabrina's surgery. He said Sabrina woke up and wanted porridge, wanted him to personally make it." "Call him." "We did. He's not answering." The baby has no heartbeat either. The mother is losing consciousness. She's not going to make it." My attending physician squeezed my hand tightly and firmly told me, "You were assigned to me, and I will not give up on you easily. Don't give up on yourself either. Notify the pediatric team. We will do everything we can to save both the mother and the baby." "Okay." I blinked silently. Someone in this world still wanted me alive, so I had to fight for it. The other doctors were still trying to contact Charles. My attending physician, along with several of the hospital's top specialists, worked against the clock to save me. I watched as bags of blood plasma were brought in, emptied, and replaced. I saw the doctors sweating yet not daring to hesitate for a second, and my chest ached with sourness. Just then, an intern excitedly held up my phone and shouted, "Dr. Charles is calling the patient." We got through. The call was put on speaker, allowing the entire operating room to hear Charles's voice. On the other end of the line, he sounded urgent yet angry. "Oriana, where did you put your maternity bag? You're not giving birth anytime soon anyway. I need to take it for Sabrina." Chapter 2. I saw my attending physician frown, his expression grim as he handed the tool in his hand to the authoritative doctor beside him. He then walked over to the intern doctor and picked up the sterilized and sealed phone. "Dr. Charles, Your wife has suffered an acute amniotic fluid embolism and is still undergoing emergency treatment. You have experience in this area. Please come to the hospital immediately to assist in saving your wife. Beep, beep, beep. The call was abruptly cut off. You've got to be kidding me. Is he insane? Ignoring his own wife to prepare a maternity kit for someone else's? And they call him an expert? What a joke! He's nothing but a complete scumbag. The voices were so loud that I couldn't help but laugh. Realizing his words might affect me, the attending physician quickly apologized. Under anesthesia, I struggled to move my eyes to indicate that it was fine, because I thought he was absolutely right. But in that moment, despair consumed me, swallowing the last bit of my stubbornness. The patient's blood oxygen levels are dropping rapidly. Notify the blood bank to prepare more plasma immediately. The hospital began urgently coordinating with every hospital in the city to procure more plasma. The news of a patient suffering from an amniotic fluid embolism quickly spread across the medical community. It even made its way onto news broadcasts. At that moment, the central hospital finally sent over a doctor who had previously handled amniotic fluid embolism cases. As soon as he entered, he exclaimed, "What a coincidence! Dr. Charles's wife is giving birth at our hospital right now. I happened to come over for a visit and ran into this situation, so I quickly applied to help out." Dr. Charles's wife? My attending physician instinctively looked at me. Meanwhile, Charles's colleague, who had assisted him in handling several amniotic fluid embolism cases before, remained calm. Upon arriving, they managed to stabilize the situation, and as my vitals gradually returned to normal, the tense atmosphere eased, and they even started chatting. When I arrived, I saw that the neonatal department had successfully resuscitated the baby, a chubby little boy. But I kept calling for the father, and no one came. Is this a single mother situation? The attending physician cleared his throat twice, but the man didn't seem to notice anything wrong. Now that I think about it, it's strange. Dr. Charles's wife is in room 303, but he didn't come to help. He's supposed to be an expert in this field. Could it be that he refused this life-saving opportunity because he was too worried about his wife giving birth? As he spoke, an intern finally lost patience and blurted out, "Dr. Lee, the woman lying right in front of you is Dr. Charles's wife, Oriana." Dr. Lee chuckled. "You kids always joke around. I've worked with Charles for so long, I know exactly who his wife is. It's Sabrina, not Oriana. We're screwed." The attending physician watched as my previously stable vitals plummeted once again. He immediately turned to Dr. Lee in panic. "Why would we lie to you? This is Charles's wife. He admitted it himself. The patient had at least a little will to live before, but now she's practically given up." Dr. Lee slapped his forehead. "I thought you were joking." Just then, the sound of a baby's cry echoed through the room. The attending physician turned to the two pediatric doctors and ordered, "Bring the baby over to the mother immediately." I forced my eyes open and saw the slightly bluish newborn. I couldn't help but smile. He was so ugly, looking exactly like Charles. And yet, I loved him so much, an instinctual, uncontrollable maternal love that overwhelmed any bitterness I had. After a full day and night of emergency treatment, after receiving over 500 units of plasma, I finally survived. When I was transferred from the ICU to a regular ward, the confinement nanny we had previously hired had already arrived after being notified in advance. I noticed her awkward expression and then glanced at the used diaper in her hand. I immediately understood. "Madam, the sir insisted that I take care of Miss Sabrina first." I really had no way to refuse. Chapter 3. Just as I was about to respond to the nanny, I heard Charles's voice coming from outside the door. "Aunt Wu, hurry up! The baby spit up again, and Sabrina doesn't have the strength to hold him." As he pushed open the hospital room door, he visibly froze for a moment. Meeting my gaze, he spoke with a casual indifference. "Our son is still in the incubator, so Aunt Wu isn't needed here for now. Let Sabrina use her for a while. I'm sure you don't mind. Oh, by the way, I've asked your parents to come take care of you. I'm too exhausted from looking after Sabrina. I really don't have the energy to care for you anymore. I hope you understand." As he spoke, a few of his colleagues walked in, carrying a large pile of gifts. "What are you still doing here? Your sister-in-law is asking for you. What happened to Sabrina?" without a second thought. He assumed they were referring to Sabrina as sister-in-law and rushed off in a hurry. His colleagues followed behind him, leaving only Aunt Wu standing there, completely bewildered. "You're Dr. Charles's wife, aren't you? Isn't that Sabrina just a friend of his? Why is everyone calling her his wife?" I smiled. Maybe they misunderstood. Aunt Wu threw down the towel in frustration. Does he not have a mouth? If it's a misunderstanding, why doesn't he clarify it? I think Dr. Charles is just a two-faced liar, happy to let everyone believe Sabrina is his wife. Even someone who barely knew Charles could see right through him. Sabrina was the unattainable goddess from his school days, the one he never had the courage to confess to but made sure everyone knew he was infatuated with. If I hadn't accompanied him to a school reunion once, I wouldn't have known that someone as proud as Charles could also lower himself to such an embarrassing degree. Whenever he faced Sabrina, he would always lower his head. At that reunion, one of his old roommates joked with the newly divorced Sabrina. "Sabrina, you really had bad luck. If you had just agreed to Charles's confession back then, you'd be the wife of the renowned Dr. Charles from the Central Hospital now. It wouldn't have been someone else's turn." And that someone else, me, was sitting right there, quietly eating my steak. None of his old classmates liked me. They saw me as the obstacle standing between Charles and Sabrina, believing that without me, their goddess would have had a rightful place. Even Charles seemed to think that way. After that reunion, he started emotionally distancing himself from me, using work as an excuse to only come home once a week. He even refused to accompany me to my prenatal checkups. Yet he constantly appeared in Sabrina's social media posts, gradually becoming the perfect man in her captions. When people misunderstood their relationship, Sabrina would simply smile and let it slide, never explaining, never denying, just accepting it all. Charles was exactly the same. He found pleasure in the assumption that his wife was the beautiful and radiant Sabrina. We had argued about this once before. He claimed that the truth will always prevail and that there was no need to prove himself over something false. He told me to respect his right to have friends. When it came to Sabrina, he was never confident enough, so the moment she showed him any affection, he would act like a desperate dog, throwing himself at her. But when it came to me, he had always believed he was my best option. Before we had a child, he thought I couldn't leave him. Now that we had a child, he was even more convinced that I would never be able to go. And so, he became more and more brazen. But he forgot, I am not like him. I was never willing to be a dog, forever feeding on scraps. Sabrina's hospital room was right next to mine. A constant stream of visitors came to see her, Charles's colleagues, his old classmates, even Dr. Lee, the doctor who had assisted in my emergency treatment. "Charles, this is absolutely disgusting. Sabrina is not your wife. Yet you never clarified, letting all of us be fooled for so long. We were calling her sister-in-law every single day. Do you know how humiliated I felt when I realized I had been saving the real Mrs. Charles while addressing the wrong woman?" Dr. Lee sounded genuinely angry. His voice was loud enough to penetrate the thin hospital wall. Charles was silent for a long moment before he finally responded. "I never told you to call her sister-in-law. You all did that on your own." Chapter 4. You seriously couldn't just tell them she's your classmate? And your wife just barely survived an amniotic fluid embolism. Yet you're here taking care of Sabrina instead of checking on her? Aren't you afraid your wife will leave you? Dr. Lee shouted as he tried to push open my hospital room door, attempting to force Charles inside. But Charles slammed it shut with force. "Afraid? I wish she would run away." He sneered. She was the one who chased after me relentlessly. After all those years of being a backup option, she finally got what she wanted. How could she possibly leave? And now that she has a child, she's even less likely to run. He scoffed again. "She's not like Sabrina. Sabrina has a heart condition, she's fragile. But Oriana? She was an athlete. An amniotic fluid embolism might be a big deal for most people. But for her, it's nothing. And you call yourself an expert in gynecology?" Dr. Lee snapped. "Do you not understand how high the fatality rate of an amniotic fluid embolism is? The woman who died on your operating table last year was an athlete, perfectly healthy, yet she died within 30 minutes of the embolism occurring. Your wife got lucky. Maybe even the Grim Reaper pitied her after seeing what kind of husband she married." Dr. Lee was practically spitting fire. But Charles still refused to step inside. The only thing he did was casually transfer me $20,000 and tell me to take care of myself. I blocked him and deleted every single contact method I had for him. That night, just before I fell asleep, my attending physician informed me that since I was recovering well, reporters from the city wanted to interview me. After all, surviving an amniotic fluid embolism, one of the deadliest complications in childbirth, was extremely rare. Don't worry. The interview will be brief. The directors from Central Hospital and a few other major hospitals will also be conducting a postnatal consultation. This could be a good opportunity for you. All right. I agreed without hesitation. On the day of the interview, Charles showed up too. He was dressed in a suit, standing confidently in the crowd, recounting the difficulties of performing an amniotic fluid embolism surgery. Beside him, Dr. Lee looked completely defeated, staring at the ground, unwilling to say a word. Meanwhile, several directors from Central Hospital gazed at Charles with admiration, occasionally throwing in words of sympathy. As doctors, the last thing we ever want to do is operate on our own family members. And Charles didn't just face an ordinary case, he had to save both his wife and unborn son. It takes incredible mental fortitude to withstand that kind of pressure and still achieve such a successful outcome. His superior showered him with praise, even giving him a knowing glance. Charles walked through the crowd and stopped in front of me. You know I'm about to be promoted. This is an opportunity. Luckily, the patient was you. If it were someone else, things wouldn't have been as easy to arrange. Just don't say anything wrong later. All right? Make sure to say that I was the one who performed the surgery. It had nothing to do with anyone else. The rest has already been taken care of by my superiors. Like always. He reached out to ruffle my hair, but after realizing I hadn't washed it since giving birth, he wiped his hand in disgust. The interview began. My attending physician arrived late, only to be blocked outside by Central Hospital staff. A reporter thrust a microphone in front of me. Ma'am, after this near-death experience, what would you like to say most? I took a moment to reflect, then held the microphone firmly. I want to thank the doctors who never gave up on me. The ones who stood by me even when I was about to give up on myself. Sensing an emerging headline, the reporter glanced at both Charles and me. Which doctor are you most grateful for? I noticed Dr. Lee was already preparing to leave, so I quickly pointed toward the entrance. My attending physician and all cameras turned toward Charles. He was ready, a speech already prepared in his mind, but I pointed at someone else. Dr. Lee from Central Hospital. The crowd erupted in whispers. Charles's eyes widened in shock. He fumbled with his phone, trying to send me a message, but when he hit send, his expression grew even darker. Meanwhile, Dr. Lee looked utterly stunned. His initial surprise soon gave way to an expression that looked like he was about to cry. The reporter, momentarily flustered, scrambled to follow up. Anyone else? I smiled. Of course, the person I want to thank the most is my husband. Chapter 5. Charles's expression changed instantly, his face softening into a look of affection as he gazed at me. But the moment my next words left my lips, his smile froze. If my husband hadn't chosen to abandon me in a life-threatening moment to operate on his mistress, I wouldn't have met my dedicated attending physician or the tireless Dr. Lee, who came to assist me. And of course, I must also thank my husband's goddess, Sabrina. If not for her, I wouldn't have known that. In my husband's eyes, an amniotic fluid embolism is just a minor surgery. Nothing to be afraid of. Sabrina, standing outside and watching everything unfold, turned deathly pale. Charles's superiors immediately halted the interview. After a stern reprimand from his boss, Charles stormed into my hospital room in a rage, only to find Aunt Wu tidying up. Where's Oriana? She had been here just a moment ago. How could she disappear so quickly? Aunt Wu scoffed. Her parents arranged for her to stay at a private postpartum care center. They just picked her up. She just left on her own? After what she did to Sabrina, she should have taken responsibility and arranged for her to go too. He pulled out his phone and tried calling me, only to realize he had been blocked on every platform. Frustrated, he called my parents instead. My parents had divorced when I was very young, and neither had been particularly involved in my upbringing. The only time they had ever actively taken an interest in my life was when I had been desperately chasing after Charles. Back then, my father had been one of Charles's professors. Seeing how determined I was, he had helped create opportunities for me, but he never seemed particularly fond of me. Even Charles had asked about it once. I had told him the truth. My father had always favored boys. From the moment I was born, he had never liked me. Charles had seemed thoughtful about that. After we got married, my father had treated Charles exceptionally well, using every resource at his disposal to support him. When Charles was in a good mood and had a bit to drink, he would even mock me. "Oriana, you're such a pitiful thing. Neither your dad nor your mom cares about you. Your father truly does favor boys. He'd rather dote on me than on you." At the time, I had believed him. After all, ever since my marriage, my father had contacted me far more frequently than before. He was constantly praising Charles in front of me, and whenever Charles needed something, my father would drop everything to help him. This had emboldened Charles, making him believe he was part of our family, someone who could make demands with a sense of entitlement. As soon as my father picked up the phone, Charles spoke with authority. "Dad, Oriana went too far. You heard what she said during that live interview, right? It's damaging my reputation and Sabrina's as well. I heard you and Mom took her to a private postpartum center. My friend just gave birth too. Why don't you use your connections to get her admitted as well? Oriana can cover the cost." Sitting beside me, my father's expression darkened. He had already learned everything that had happened during my emergency. His face was grim, his brows tightly furrowed. "Charles," he said in a dangerously calm voice, "do you really think you're my son?" Charles was momentarily caught off guard. My father let out a cold chuckle. "Just because Oriana's mother and I divorced, and we were both too busy to take care of her properly, doesn't mean that some outsider like you has a more important place in my heart than my own daughter." I quietly sipped my soup. My mother immediately handed me a small plate with a dessert. "It's coconut flavored. Your favorite. Your father specifically instructed the kitchen to make it for you." Tears welled in my eyes as I took a bite. Meanwhile, my father stood up, seething with anger as he snapped into the phone. "Oriana's mother and I were good to you because we expected you to be good to Oriana. It was never because I preferred boys. Even if you were my own son, which you are not, I still wouldn't be stupid enough to favor you over my own daughter." Chapter 6. My father angrily hung up the phone. "I don't know what kind of blind delusion made you insist on being with Charles in the first place, but look where that got you." My mother elbowed him sharply. "Our daughter is already suffering, and you're just adding fuel to the fire. She barely survived this time. If anything had happened to her, I wouldn't have let Charles get away with it." The two of them bickered back and forth while I sat there, staring at my child, lost in thought. Then my father turned to me, his voice firm. "As soon as your postpartum period is over, divorce him. You can't stay with a man like that. It's already done." Both my parents froze, staring at me in shock. I had already divorced him. Last month, Charles had forced me into it. It happened after I went for a prenatal checkup alone and ran into him and Sabrina. He was holding her belly with such tenderness, analyzing her ultrasound with a soft smile, telling her that the baby was a girl, adorable and healthy. Meanwhile, I stood alone, clutching my own examination report, arguing with a woman who had cut in line. I almost got pushed down, but Charles walked right past me as if I didn't even exist. But Sabrina saw me. That night, she sent me a message. It contained screenshots of her chat with Charles. It turned out they had been in frequent contact ever since the reunion. Whenever Charles was on night shifts and not by my side, he was video calling her. In his messages, I was nothing more than a nuisance, a burden. He didn't love me, but he felt obligated to take responsibility. He told her that sometimes he truly wanted to divorce me, but I clung to him like my life depended on it. "She's not as good as you, in every possible way. Sometimes I regret not waiting longer for you. If I divorce her, do we still have a chance? Really? You still like me? Don't worry. Even though this child isn't mine, I will take care of her. I won't miss a single one of your checkups." Sabrina claimed she wasn't trying to break up my marriage. She just wanted a father figure for her unborn child. Even a godfather would do. She told me not to be too jealous, or else Charles would be under too much psychological pressure. When I showed the messages to Charles, he snapped. "If you can't accept my friendship with Sabrina, or an innocent child, Then let's just get a divorce. Fine. I was heavily pregnant, but I still went with him to file for divorce. At first, the clerk refused, but after seeing my determination, they processed the application. They reminded us that it would take 1 month for the cooling-off period to end before it would be finalized. Charles turned to me and sneered, "You better not regret this." I admit, in the days that followed, I did regret it. I was terrified of raising a child alone. I feared my parents would side with Charles and not support me. But most of all, I was unwilling to accept it. He was the person I had spent years chasing after. Was it really going to end like this? But after everything that happened, after nearly dying in childbirth because of him, every ounce of lingering attachment was shattered. I have 2 days left before the cooling-off period ends. I'll go finalize it then. My parents gripped my hands tightly, their eyes full of pain. On the day I went to finalize the divorce, my childhood friends and close girlfriends arrived, carrying armfuls of electronic firecrackers and flowers. At the entrance of the Civil Affairs office, they decorated the area as if I were there to get married instead of divorced. Then Charles arrived, holding Sabrina's baby, hand in hand with Sabrina. His face was smug, filled with the arrogance of someone who believed he had one. "Don't make a scene," he said, looking at me. "I'm not going to get back together with you. I only came here today because I'm marrying Sabrina. Step aside. We're in a hurry." My best friend raised a loudspeaker and shouted, "Clear the way. Everyone! The prestigious cheating man and his beloved homewrecker are here to register their marriage. What bad luck! Clear the way." Meanwhile, my childhood friend unfurled a huge banner. "Congratulations to my best friend for successfully dumping her old, cheating husband." Chapter 7. When I married Charles. I had really wanted him to fit into my social circle. I brought him along to our gatherings, hoping he'd blend in, but every single time, he had something critical to say about my friends. He thought they were too immature and claimed he just couldn't get along with them. Eventually, even when I went out alone to see my friends, he would call me repeatedly, demanding I come home. He said it was because he didn't want me to be negatively influenced by them. But I knew the truth. He was 5 years older than me. Whenever he entered my social circle, he felt insecure. Being around a group of young, attractive men made him spiral into self-doubt. Back then, I sympathized with his insecurities. Over time, I gradually distanced myself from my friends, but I never cut them off completely. Instead, I made a private account to keep in touch, venting about Charles from time to time. So when I announced my divorce, my friends were ecstatic. They flooded me with messages, celebrating the fact that I had finally woken up. One after another, they traveled from all over just to be here for me. As I sat at the desk finalizing the paperwork, I happened to glance at Sabrina's baby. Something seemed off. Her gaze was vacant, unfocused, unusual for a baby at this stage. My mother was a pediatric specialist, and I had studied pediatric neurology before dropping out. Instinctively, I sensed that something wasn't right. There was a high chance this child had cerebral palsy, and, from the looks of it, it was the rare kind caused by genetic mutations. After finishing the paperwork, I kindly mentioned my concerns. Charles shoved me away. "Are you out of your mind? Cursing a child like that? And I'm an OBGYN expert. I obviously know more about this than a dropout like you." I laughed. "Believe what you want. I was just being nosy. If you want to stay ignorant, go ahead, enjoy your life, without the burden of being his wife." It felt like my old self had returned. We even stayed to watch Charles and Sabrina register their marriage. I stood on the sidelines, utterly indifferent. My childhood friend chuckled. "Your ex-husband is so excited his hands are shaking. He finally got to marry his goddess." There was a hint of mockery in her tone. I had a feeling she knew something I didn't. After all, she was a lawyer. Sabrina's ex-husband had been a well-known self-made businessman, but their divorce had been anything but amicable. Rumor had it that Sabrina had been kicked out with nothing. She had claimed it was because her husband had cheated, and she was too naive to fight back. She said the mistress and her ex-husband had secretly transferred all the marital assets, leaving her with nothing. I asked my friend about it. She burst into laughter. "You actually believe Sabrina was some innocent little angel? That woman cheated on her husband with 3 different men in a single year. He forgave her again and again until he finally had enough. She scoffed. She left with nothing because she spent all the money her husband gave her on some pretty boy lover. And guess what? The guy took the money and ran. She lost everything. I wanted to warn you and Charles about her ages ago. But before I could, your ex walked straight into her trap. I shrugged. It wasn't my problem anymore. As I stepped out of the civil affairs office, Charles looked at me one last time. I don't want the kid. I'd rather dedicate myself to raising Sabrina's child as my own. If I take in both, I might not be able to treat them equally. I smirked. No worries. I'll make sure our child knows their father died a long time ago. Oriana, your stubbornness is honestly hilarious. Charles laughed as he opened the car door for Sabrina, holding her hand. Just as he was about to get in, I slammed the door shut. This is my car, premarital asset. Almost forgot, hand over the keys. Before he could react, my friends and I piled into the car. I floored the gas pedal, leaving a trail of exhaust in Charles's face. Chapter 8. A few months later, my body had fully recovered, and I had started working in the pharmaceutical industry. I took full advantage of my father's influence, letting him bring me to all sorts of networking events. Before long, I had made a name for myself in the industry. Even Charles's hospital, Central Hospital, had reached out to discuss a potential partnership for purchasing advanced medical equipment. That day, I was having dinner with several hospital representatives. Among them was Martin, my former attending physician. He had since become quite accomplished in his own right. As we toasted each other, he laughed. It's only been a few months, but I barely recognize you. The change is incredible. I tilted my head and gave a shy smile. Maybe I just got older. After having a baby, my skin isn't as good as before, so I guess it's natural you wouldn't recognize me. He shook his head. No, you're more confident now. By the way, how's little Bean? Some of the nurses in our department still talk about him all the time. I smiled and pulled out my phone, flipping through photos of my son. Ever since he was born, my entire photo album had been filled with him. At first, he had looked exactly like Charles. Seeing his face used to irritate me, but as he grew, he started resembling my side of the family more. I was so focused on showing Martin pictures that I didn't realize someone was standing behind me. Charles. He was craning his neck, looking at my phone screen over my shoulder, unaware of his presence. I continued scrolling. Then, suddenly, a group photo popped up. Martin grinned. A boyfriend? My face flushed red. Not quite a boyfriend, just someone I was getting to know. He was my best friend's older brother. We had met before, but recently, since he was a neurosurgeon and I worked in pharmaceuticals, we had been interacting more. He looks familiar. Martin frowned for a moment before his eyes lit up in realization. Wait, he's the genius neurosurgeon with autism, isn't he? The word autism caught the attention of everyone at the table. I nodded with a smile. Yes, he's on the autism spectrum, but he's much better now. Then, a voice dripping with mockery came from behind me. So, after leaving me, you settled for an autistic guy? Oriana, you're hilarious. I turned around. Charles. I had heard that he wasn't doing well. Lately, all his surgeries had been handed over to Dr. Lee. The one operation he had performed had nearly resulted in massive blood loss, almost killing the patient. As a result, Central Hospital had sidelined him, relegating him to outpatient consultations only. I hadn't expected to see him today. He confidently pulled out a chair and sat beside me. I glanced at him. That seat isn't yours. He smirked. Everyone knows Central Hospital is your biggest buyer for medical equipment. If I don't sit here, then who should? He leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. Oriana, stop playing hard to get. I know you've been asking around about me. Just because Sabrina and I are getting divorced doesn't mean I'm coming back to you. I rolled my eyes. Get up from this seat. He grabbed my wrist, gripping it tightly. Enough of this nonsense. My patience has its limits. Just as he was about to force himself into the seat, Dr. Lee arrived, hand in hand with his wife. When he saw Charles, his expression darkened. The hospital already rejected your request. What are you still doing here? Charles's face stiffened. Then, without warning, He wrapped his arms around me. The hospital rejected me, he said smugly. But my ex-wife won't, right, Ori? I looked at him, wondering where he got this level of self-delusion. You're right. I won't reject you. I'll kick you out. Security. He was dragged away, staring at me in utter disbelief. Oriana, you're going to regret this. I ignored him. After settling back into my seat, Mrs. Lee handed me a business card. Oriana, thank you so much for speaking highly of my husband in front of his superiors. He's been given so many opportunities because of you. I own a beauty clinic. Feel free to come anytime. No charge. I accepted the card with a smile. It was only then that I realized my father must have put in a good word for Dr. Lee. After Charles was escorted out, the rest of the evening went smoothly. The deal was finalized, and I planned to celebrate with my best friend over drinks. But as soon as I stepped out of the hotel, I saw Sabrina. Chapter 9. She was getting along quite well with a small-time actor, her face still flushed. I watched them enter the elevator. Just as the doors were about to close, Sabrina happened to meet my gaze. For a moment, she looked panicked. But what did it have to do with me? I turned around and got into my friend's car. On the way home, Charles, whom I had unblocked not long ago, suddenly sent me a message. He probably never expected me to take him off the block list. I want to see my son. After all, I'm his father. Can I meet him? He sent a bunch of messages. I replied with just one. He doesn't have a father. Take good care of your and Sabrina's child. Then I blocked him again. But I never expected to see Charles at my house a few days later. That day, I had just finished working overtime. My best friend had her brother pick me up. Our relationship had warmed up a bit. Getting someone with autism to actively care about others was already quite rare. As I stepped out of the elevator, I saw Basil standing in front of me with a small cake and a bouquet of sunflowers. I heard you like sunflowers, so I got you some. And this is a tiramisu for you. When we arrived home, he skillfully pressed my door code. Mom, Dad, Basil's here for dinner. As I spoke, I noticed Charles sitting on the sofa. He looked stunned as he saw Basil and me holding hands. Basil wasn't very familiar with Charles. When he saw him, he instinctively greeted him politely and naturally placed the flowers in my room. Auntie, let me help you. My mom walked out of the kitchen. Forget it. Your hands are too precious. Just wait and eat. She glanced at Charles. Are you done talking? Dinner is ready. Charles got up and walked straight to the seat where he used to sit whenever he had dinner at our house. My parents were both shocked. We never said you could stay for dinner. My dad said bluntly. I meant that if you're done talking, leave now and don't delay our meal. My dad went straight to open the door. I'll find someone to help with the child's situation. It's getting dark. If you don't leave now, you won't be able to get a cab. Charles looked at me. Oriana, can we talk? I shook my head. There's nothing to talk about. I walked inside and told my mom to add more chili. I was in the mood for something spicy. Basil glanced at Charles. Do you need me to press the elevator for you? That line made Charles furious. He stormed off angrily. After watching him leave, my dad shut the door firmly. What bad luck. We were supposed to pick up the kid from your childhood friend's place today. But the moment we stepped out, we ran into Charles. He said he came to see the child. So your mom and I decided not to go. Coming to see his kid empty-handed, he doesn't even know the kid's name. And he still dares to call himself a father. My mom served the dishes. Basil picked one up and looked at me, noticing how I was stuffing piece after piece into my mouth. He chuckled. You didn't. I didn't. Don't worry. No one eats the same pile of crap twice. Then my dad told me that Sabrina's child did indeed have some issues, which had only recently become apparent. Charles wanted my dad's help in finding a neurosurgeon to take a look. He asked for my opinion. I didn't mind. After all, I felt nothing for Charles. Without love, there wasn't much hatred either, just indifference. Meanwhile, Basil had been temporarily assigned to the Central Hospital due to his outstanding skills. So I went there to visit him. As soon as I stepped inside, I saw Dr. Lee. He walked over with a smile. Basil is in a meeting. You can wait in my office. It's quite hot outside. I nodded and followed him into the office. The moment I pushed open the door, I saw Charles inside. He and Sabrina seemed to be arguing. Sabrina was shouting loudly that she wanted a divorce. Charles pointed at her. Think carefully. If we divorce, Oriana will be waiting for me with the kid. Chapter 10. Sabrina let out a chuckle. She's already blocked you, and you still think she's waiting for you? She has a prestigious status now. Her little boyfriend, Basil, is the top neurology specialist. You haven't even seen your own kid. Where do you get all this confidence from? Charles smirked. She can't live without me. She's only with Basil to spite me, to make me come back. You're overthinking it. I smiled as I pushed the door open and walked in with Dr. Lee. The two of us sat down and chatted as if the other two weren't even there. I got your engagement invitation with Basil. I'll definitely bring my wife along. It's my honor. Basil always tells me how much you take care of him at the hospital. You know he's a bit autistic and doesn't have many friends. Thank you for looking after him. Dr. Lee nodded with a smile. Charles suddenly grabbed my wrist. Oriana, I'm about to finalize my divorce. Once that's done, we can get remarried. Don't marry that autistic guy. Who wants a third-hand reject like you? And autism is still better than being a piece of trash. Oriana, you weren't like this before. You used to. I sighed and pushed him away. I used to be an idiot, but I've recovered now. Don't grab me like that. Your wife is still here. It wouldn't be good if she misunderstood. Sabrina scoffed, then turned and walked away with her little boy toy. Charles's eyes widened. Sabrina waved at him dismissively before leaving for good. After that day, Charles went crazy trying to reconcile with me. He waited outside my apartment every day. One day, he was still there. Even as heavy rain poured down, he refused to leave. When I went downstairs with an umbrella, Basil, looking a little nervous, asked, "Should I make him some hot water?" I shook my head. When Charles saw me coming, his voice choked up. I knew it. I knew you wouldn't be so heartless. You still have feelings for me. I laughed. You're overthinking it. My fiancé's birthday is today. I ordered a cake and just came down to pick it up. I took the cake from the delivery guy, then turned to Charles. A good ex should be as good as dead. He grabbed my hand. I turned around and slapped him. Stop pretending to be deeply in love. I don't have time to play along. If you can disappear, then disappear. I never want to see you again. As I walked back upstairs, I heard a loud thud from behind, but I didn't look back. It wasn't until much later that I found out Charles got into a car accident that night. He was paralyzed. Sabrina didn't divorce him, but she sent him to a rehabilitation center while she moved into the house Charles had bought, living with her boy toy and spending the compensation money. But she had a botched plastic surgery, which led to an infection, and her face rotted. The child surgery was successful, but because her boy toy scammed her out of all the money, the follow-up treatments were delayed. When my friend heard about it, she just shook her head. See? Karma still exists. Then, my childhood friend held up my wedding dress and looked at me. A black wedding dress? Your fiancé really has a unique taste. I shook my head with a smile. The idea of wearing black to my wedding was mine. Basil had just nodded in agreement. The only time he ever objected to me was when I once said I loved him so much I could even have his children. It was just a figure of speech, after all. I had experienced an amniotic fluid embolism before, and giving birth again would be a huge risk for me. But the moment I said it, he covered my mouth. He told me he didn't need that. As a doctor, he knew very well what kind of danger a woman who had experienced an amniotic fluid embolism would face if she got pregnant again. I don't need you to have children for me. I just need you to live well and be your happiest self. After we got married, aside from his autism, everything about him was perfect. He loved me dearly. Though I had been through so much, I finally welcomed my rebirth. The past was beyond my control, but the future was full of possibilities.